Hey everybody, this is a build breakdown video of the Apocalypse build I like to run. There's two variants of it. Both are predicated around a lot of mod use. So of course we have Archon in the mix. So let's look at the first one. Like I said, we have Archon. We are going to be focused on corrosive damage for this version of the build. So we have a Fluvium Enhancer to do extra corrosive damage and acid damage. We also have the Acid Stone for more increase in acid damage. And we've got the Nebula, where we're going to have 100% uptime on Nanoswarm with our feedback mutator and the Archon class. So we're going to be just running around popping Nanoswarm every chance we get. The other damage dealing item we've got is the Coach Gun. Most importantly here, you can switch out the gun if you want, but most importantly here is the corrosive rounds. Also have the extender on to get 3 in the chamber, 3 in the mag. But we don't have 100% uptime on the corrosive rounds, but we're about 90% of the time going to be using corrosive rounds for more acid damage and corrosive damage. The other part of the build is kind of being tanky and have health regen. So for that part, we've got the rerouting cable to get a shield every time we dodge, and the generating band to regen health every time we have a shield. We also have the Ring of Robust for increased max health and armor. For our traits, we've got the ones that come with our classes. Triage for extra healing, Regrowth for more health regen, Fortify for more tankiness, enough points in strong back to be able to run the armor that we're using, which is Leader Mark 1 helmet, Leader Mark 2 armor, Bruiser boots, and Leader Mark 1 gloves. So we have enough that we get a heavy roll, enough points in strong back that we can come in at heavy roll. Vigor, Spirit, Siphoner for health, for lifesteal, Chakra for mod duration, that's how we can have 100% uptime on Nanoswarm, and Bark Skin for damage reduction. The secondary archetype is more or less up to you. I'm using Hunter for extra damage when we're using our Coach Gun, but you could use something else if you wanted to, for example, have more of the corrosive dot damage for status effect damage. You could swap something else in there. So let's see how this is going to work. At the shooting range, we're going to pop Nanoswarm, switch over to Coach Gun, pop corrosive rounds, and just start spamming our Coach Gun. And we can hit about between 2 and 3k DPS. We've got real good sustained damage. Well, not real good, but enough damage to make it competitive, and we're pretty tanky too. So that's kind of the overview of the first version of the build, the corrosive focused version of the build. I'm also using Shielded Heart. Shielded Heart we're going to be popping preemptively when we know there's going to be some heavy hitting attacks from bosses, for example, like in the Shahala fight when he spawns the green orbs that come and try to track you. Those do a lot of damage, so we would pop a Shielded Heart when we get a chance when those things first spawn. And that kind of wraps up the first version. We don't use the skills, we don't use skills much. You can kind of choose whatever suits you. And so now let's go to the second version of the build, the explosive kind of variant. So instead of corrosive damage, this is going to be focused on explosive damage. Because of that, we swap out Hunter for the Summoner, and we want the Minion Flyer so we can get 2 of them, and we'll talk about why we want that later. Because we're using explosive damage, we're going to want the detonation trigger so we can cause burning and get explosive damage increase. We use Summoner for the explosive damage buff that the Summoner has. We still have these 2 rings here for our health regen, but we swap out the other 2 for the Kolket Eyelet, which gives a stack of Bulwark and increases our health regen for every stack of Bulwark we have, and then Soul Guard that gives us a stack of bulwark for each summon we have, and that's why we want the 2 summons that the minions have. So we get real tanky there. More tanky than the other version of the build, actually, where when we have both of our minions up, right now we're at 63 damage reduction. When we have our summons up, that goes up to 69% damage reduction. We use our main source of damage is the Corrupted Meridian because of the Dead Point mod, which does a shit ton of damage, especially with the Archon archetype. We got feedback to get it back more often. We want to be spamming that as frequently as possible. That's where we get most of our damage from. Our other weapon is basically up to you, but the mod, again, is where we're going to focus our attention. I'm using the Tremor mod. This is going to be great for ad clear, effectively. If you're fighting a boss fight where Tremor's not going to be doing a lot of ad clear, maybe it's moving around too much or something, I will switch Tremor out for Space Crabs. Space Crabs count as a summon, so it's giving us extra stacks of bulwark, which in turn gives us extra health regen. And also it'll track the boss. If it's a single target boss, then Space Crabs works pretty good for that. So you'll see some videos I'm rocking Space Crabs. And that's kind of the only difference. Everything else is kind of the same. The gameplay is pretty much the same. One other difference is we want kinship, so we don't kill ourselves with the Corrupted Meridian. And everything else, oh, and then we also have the other changes. We have Rugged here to keep our summons up. Those are the only real 2 changes that we got. And so let's see what this is going to look like. We're going to be spamming this, popping our Tremor. Every chance we get, we want to use another Dead Point. We can pop another one of those. We don't quite have the same DPS, same sustain. We kind of have more burst because we're only at like 1.5k DPS, whereas the other one was like 2.5k DPS. But one of these Dead Points is going to do 3.5k damage, right? So like the burst damage is pretty crazy. So we'll hit one with this, dodge around. By the next time we want to do a big burst of damage, our Dead Point will be up, and we've got it there. So those are the 2 builds that I like to run, depending on the different enemy types or the boss fight that I'm in. I will choose one or the other. Some work better for certain bosses. For example, like the Shahala boss fight. This version of the build doesn't work well because for kind of several reasons, but one of which is that Shahala is immune to fire. So these 47 ticks that actually over the course of a long boss fight add up a pretty good amount. Those don't hit, and you really want to use get the weak spot damage on that Shahala fight. So the Meridian doesn't do weak spot damage. So for those kind of fights, I'll switch over to Corrosive, or like the other fights that are better for this version of the build. So let's kind of jump into some gameplay and we'll see how this works in practice. You know what, actually, I'll end the video here. I will create a second video that will be a sequel to this video that will be more of the build showcase. So I'll split it up into 2. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to check out the build showcase video, I'll try to link it in the description. So have a nice day, everybody.